Hello and welcome back to the Looney Bin. My name is Looney and I will be continuing my series of Final Fantasy VII videos, and this time I want to take a closer look at the Affinity System. The Affinity System has been largely a huge debate among a lot of the fandom, specifically in shipping, specifically in the context of the story, and it revolves around a lot of people getting, or according to some, misinformation about what exactly the story of Final Fantasy VII is trying to lead to, and people getting the getting the wrong interpretation of what any of the story actually means. You have people who think that one side is misinterpreting, you have another side who thinks they're interpreting differently, all this stuff. And it's quite honestly, most of it has to do with either one, agendas, but the Affinity System also does play some part in it. And I want to explore specifically what the Affinity System is, especially with what the devs kind of were worried about in terms of adding the Affinity System and why they were kind of wary about adding it at all. So before we get into Final Fantasy VII specifically, let's talk about what exactly is the Affinity System. The Affinity System is not new. It's a very common game mechanic that you see in a lot of JRPGs, a lot of RPGs, chat choice games, visual novels, and it's specifically, and I want to make this very clear, the Affinity System of this type is always catered to fan service. While yes, some chat-based games have it specifically to make it so that, it's part of the story, such as Detroit Become Human, but Affinity System specifically, which you see in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Persona as well, is all fan service. It's not supposed to be a huge part of the story, the base story, the actual story that most people who don't even have shipping agendas or any character agendas understand and really go for in Final Fantasy VII. The Affinity System is and always will be fan service because it's about the player's relationship with the characters. But Final Fantasy VII does it slightly different. I'll explain in a bit. But in Persona, whenever you play a character and try to bond with your party in some form of way with the system that they have in place, the higher the rating is, you could go on a date with some of the characters, But that entire Affinity System is all based around you, the player. You, the player, determine who you want the protagonist to date or to bond with or to, grow deeper with. Because in Persona, the protagonist, while he does have his own personality, most of the choices puts you, the player, in the position of the protagonist. So whoever you are, really want to raise the affinity with, that's based on your own preference. It's not on the protagonist's preference. So that's why it feels like a lot of people are taking the Persona version and kind of combining it with the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth affinity. But there's a big difference. The big difference is that unlike Persona, where the protagonist is based on you, the player, it's not about us being Cloud. Cloud is his own character. The feelings and the choices you make in the game is all based around Cloud's feelings, not the player's feelings. While it is also true that most people who do play the system just usually go for whatever character they like or prefer, like let's say you're an Aerith fan, you want to see more of the relationship between Cloud and Aerith, or if you're a Tifa fan, you want to see more of the Cloud and Tifa, companionship, or if you're a man of culture, you go with Barret. Obviously the right choice, right? But essentially, the Affinity System in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is all about Cloud's feelings towards the party, and it's all around essentially one of the main core themes of Rebirth, which is the bonds the characters all share with each other. It's been confirmed by the developers themselves that that's what one of the main things is. It's about the bonds everyone makes with each other, with people they meet, and I think it's a beautiful representation that Final Fantasy Rebirth gave us in terms of bonds. And I think that's where a lot of the misconception is. A lot of people who took the Affinity System thought of it as a dating sim, which is what you see in most visual novels, even in Persona, where you whoever's your highest affinity you go on a date with, because that's the character you want to date. In Rebirth, that's not the case, because it's also about Cloud's feelings, and Cloud's feelings, depending on who you go on the Golden Saucer date, is different depending on Cloud's feelings towards that party member. So that's why you get different variations of the Golden Saucer dates depending on who you go on that date with. And it's one of the things that a lot of people get confused by, and essentially get confused by what happens at the end of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, the devs were pretty smart about how they wanted to do the Affinity System. While it is more focused on Cloud and his feelings, they made it so that the scenes themselves are not weird or out of place or like out of character for, Cloud to be doing some of the stuff he does in the Golden Saucer dates with whoever you decide to go on, right? The way they made or written each and every single Golden Saucer date, or how they've written each and every affinity moment, is specifically supposed to be on character. So while they claim and say that the Affinity System is just like a side thing that doesn't really go into the main story, they still did a very, very careful job of making sure the characters are not, doing things that may be out of their realm, that would be out of their character. So it's pretty cool to see how some of these dates essentially showcase just how Cloud really would be with each and every person that he would go on these dates with. So it's pretty cool to see, and I think that's the right and smart way to deal with this type of thing, so that at the end of the day it doesn't deviate too much from the main story, and it keeps every character in character. It's not like all of a sudden Barrett and Cloud go on a makeout session because that's what fans wanted to see of Cloud and Barrett shippers, that kind of stuff, right? So at the end of the day, I think what they did was really good, and how they perfected it and how they executed it was really well done. The problem comes from mostly how other people would interpret those scenes later on in the main story, and why they feel like it doesn't fit depending on who you choose or go with on these dates. So in the Ultimania that was released about a couple weeks ago, the developers talked about how like they didn't necessarily want to add it because they thought that it would change the not the mood, but the but just how the main story itself will play out depending on the player's choice, and they were afraid of that. But they still added in it because it was still an essential part of the original. And you know what? I was a fan of that. I was a fan of the Affinity System in the OG, and I'm glad they brought it back in Rebirth, and it's one of the best mechanics that I enjoy a lot, because my thing is all about character. And I love to study character. I love to study like characters' interactions with other characters. Like what makes a character do what they do. Why is the character so beloved? Why is the character so hated? I want to learn and study that, because at the end of the day, the media that I consume, I focus more a lot on the character, followed by the story. Shipping, I love shipping. I love to ship. But at the end of the day, it's way below the story and character-driven stories that I really enjoy a lot. So that's why when I played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I didn't go into it thinking like, oh, I want to go on a date with this person, I want to go on a date with that person. I wanted to see Cloud bonding with each party member. I was excited to do the Cloud Barrett side quest. I was excited to do the Cloud Red side quests, right? I was excited to do all of that. I wanted to get each character 3 stars on the choices that you make in the game. The choices, some of them are very good, or just a bad choice to make, depending on what character you choose. It's labeled by 3, 2, 1 stars, right? But you don't know what they are until after you choose all the choices that in the game, and then new game plus, whatever choice you did choose from before, you see what rating it is. And I love that. I really do, because Affinity Systems is one of the best ways to give you more in-depth of characters' personalities, their feelings towards each other, that maybe you can't fit in the game. And it's great fan service, especially for shippers or in character, fans of certain characters, because you get to know more about your favorite character. You get to see more about your favorite ship, and have scenes for your favorite ship. It's a wonderful thing, and I think it should And I'm glad it stayed, I'm glad it did stay. But I think the issue is that people started viewing it more as a dating sim. So when people, for example, that I have seen that got maybe a date with Tifa, were not necessarily happy with what was occurring in chapter 14, specifically the date Aerith has with Cloud and the last scene in the church. And they got, frustrated because that's not, why is Cloud doing this and all that stuff. Cloud, you kissed Tifa. Why are you going on a date with Aerith? Why are you acting like this, and stuff like that. And I can understand why they're frustrated. I can understand why, it's quite like kind of weird to see Cloud, kind of act in that chapter. I could go more into about my personal opinions about that whole thing, but I don't want to go too much into it because I think it requires another video to go really more in depth on it. But I think that's where a lot of people's really frustrated emotions came from, especially if they were more fans of Cloud and Tifa or Tifa in general, right? And I think it kind of hurts the overall story because of that misconception of what exactly, the Affinity System really is about. And I'm not blaming the player. I am not blaming the player because most games that have the Affinity System tend to lean towards, like a dating sim. And most people don't necessarily play choice-based games because, most of the time it's usually only involving like visual novels, dating sims, and a very rare game like Persona or Detroit Become Human, where it's all about, making choices and sticking with your choices. So I'm not blaming the player. It's not their fault. It's just, that's just how the gaming mechanic in general is always assumed to be. But there are instances where that kind of mechanic is slightly different. And I think most people never experienced this type of system before, where it's about the main character's feelings, not the players themselves' feelings. Even in visual novels, whenever you go through like a bunch of choices, there's always probably that one girl that you're like, ooh, she looks attractive, she looks really cool. And then you learn more about their personality and you want, to make the choices based on that person. That's fan service. That's all fan service, because now you, the player, are deciding who you want, the main protagonist in that game or visual novel to go with. And, that's fine. But that's what the Affinity System is. It's all about the fan service, about what you, the player, want. And you, the player, in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, may not necessarily get, like, you being the self-insert in Cloud and who you want Cloud to date, but you see Cloud's feelings. And I think that's so wonderful that you get to see Cloud in essentially how he feels about each party member. You see it. You see it in, the Yuffie scenario where Cloud treats her like, that, older brother, younger sister type of relationship. And it's wonderful. I really enjoyed the Yuffie one a lot. Then you see the one where he's hanging out with Kate Sith, with Sid, and Vincent. And he's just like, they're all just like, all right, yeah, it's like none of them are interested because Cloud doesn't really have any sort of like big relationship with these characters. So why should Cloud at all be like more intimate with them or like have some sort of relationship with them? Because he has nothing with them. You only hang out with them for like a short period of time, right? Compared to everyone else, with like Barrett, Red, Tifa, Aerith, you at least spend time with those characters, so you get more of Cloud's feelings coming out about that certain character, and it's a wonderful thing to see. It is Cloud's feelings that are in these moments about those party members. The other thing to note about this Affinity System is the way they determine who gets to go on the Golden Saucer dates in both Chapter 8 and Chapter 12. It's pretty cool. From what we know from the Ultimania, Barrett has the most chances of you to essentially, approve your affinity with Cloud with him. And I believe Tifa and Aerith essentially have the same amount that you can, have with Cloud. So it's not whether or not, Tifa or Aerith have more than the other. They're both equal. And the cool thing is that when you have them all maxed out, the person that goes with you on that Golden Saucer date, it's not random. It's not like the choice that you get with, if you max everybody out, is going to be the canon one, as some people claim. No. What happens is that whoever's the first person in your party after Cloud, That's what we get on the Golden Saucer Day. That's how they basically have the tiebreaker. And that's actually really smart to do because it allows people to essentially, whoever they want to go on, these Golden Saucer Days, but they just have to rearrange the party and then there you go. So it's not like there's one guaranteed character that will go on even if you max everybody out. It's a right way to do the Affinity System this way. So I think that was the correct move. And it definitely shows that they really, really planned all of this out very carefully. It isn't like some spontaneous thing that they added, but they wanted it to be and made it as careful as possible because they knew just how much the fandom probably will get involved and get like really at each other about. So it's a great thing that that's how they basically did that. And of course, people are going to use the Affinity System to support their ship, support, whatever agenda they have. And it needs to be understood that, especially since the devs also mentioned this, is that this is all fan service. This is all meant to be something for you to play, to experience. The problem is that most players thought that it's, who these choices all basically pointed towards what they want Cloud to feel. But it's not. Yes, you get to see because the choices you make you see which character you want to see Cloud's feelings about for, and not the other way around. And that's where a lot of the misconception happens. And I think that's where a lot of the discourse about what happens at the end from certain fans are, have a different attitude towards. And I viewed the Affinity System as Cloud's feelings from the get-go. I understood what they were going for once I did a few of the first few choices. I understood what was happening. Because I played enough of these goddamn, choice-based games, I understood the difference between, you inserting yourself into the character and who you wanting the character to date versus what Cloud's feelings were for that character. Because I played enough visual novels, I played enough goddamn choice-based games, it's kind of nuts how much I fucking love this mechanic. That's why there's this whole misconception on it. Now, regardless of who you ship, whatever you decide to interpret the story or those moments, you can. But I think personally that all of this is just fan service. That's what this mechanic has always been about, no matter what game you play. And at the end of the day, it's a fun mechanic for me. I really love the mechanic. And I know some people don't necessarily like it because, they feel like it should represent about who you, the player, want, to date or, want the main character to date. But understand that the main story and all that stuff, and even the devs say that, all the Golden Saucer dates and stuff like that is not necessarily, part of the main story, that it's something separate. It's because it is fan service. That's what this system is all about. So hopefully this video has helped you at least understand, what the Affinity System was meant for, why, a lot of people were kind of frustrated in terms of the whole thing with, Cloud and everything going on this day, and maybe Cloud and Tifa fans were upset by it. At the end of the day, it's all fan service, and I think part of it is trying to make it into a dating sim when shipping should always be below the story and characters themselves, because you cannot ship without knowing the characters and knowing the story. And one final thing before I end this video: interpretations happen in all fiction. You can have any interpretation you want based on how you read something, how you want something, or what you think something happened, because everyone reads certain things very differently. That's perfectly fine. You can have your interpretation. But know that the devs and writers necessarily are the ones who will decide what route they want to go for. So if your interpretation is wrong, don't hate it. Don't be like some people who don't want to buy the game if they don't get their way. That's not the point. You're disrespecting the devs like that. Understand that the devs are not trying to fake you out or anything like that. What they're trying to do is just tell their story. And whatever happens, don't hate on it. Don't be like you're not going to buy the game. Support the devs. Because at the end of the day, the story and the characters are what's more important. Shipping is for fun, and it should not encompass the entire thing. And I know if what you care most about is the shipping, that's perfectly fine as well. Just want to make it clear that it should not always be the top priority. But there are certain series where shipping is like the only thing you care about, and you know, that's perfectly fine. I have series like that as well. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I explained it a little bit, or explained what this Affinity System is and what it was supposed to be as clear as possible. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my Final Fantasy VII videos. And thank you so much. Like the video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.